Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to another Sunday of When Black Women Gather. My name is Helen Higginbotham. I'm the founder of a Black women's organization. And today we have Black men and Black women. Everybody's welcome to this call because it's a topic that's important to all of us. We all travel. And although we're going to be talking about Dubai today, I want us to be conscious of just traveling in general. Whenever we travel, we need to be aware of where we're going, what the rules are, what we can do, what we can't do. And today we have the pleasure of having wonderful guests. Let me first, I think you all have heard about Miss Tierra. Hold on, I'm trying to spotlight you, Miss Tierra. Oops. So that's Tierra and her mom, Tina. I have not spoken with you at all, Tierra. You look so lovely.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
And we're so glad you're on this soil, on this side of the earth. So we're going to hear about her story first, and then we're going to hear about Danielle, her story. Tierra's story, I think, is more recent, and it was in the news. Danielle's story is a few years older, but very complicated as well. And she's going to share with us her story. And then I'm going to call you my co-host today. Is that okay, Rada?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
So Rada will be, all of you, I want you to know who Rada is. Rada has an organization called Detained in Dubai. And she helps people all across, not just in Dubai, all across the United Arab Nations. And she will share with us her involvement in both of these cases and others. She's going to share with us also what has been some of the trends that she's seen, and particularly how it's affecting Black females in particular. Things that we need to be aware of. These are not isolated cases, so I don't want us to think that. So on that note, I'm going to Danielle, I'll bring you back on when it's time to tell your story. If everybody could stay muted, and please, of course, put your questions in the chat as we're going along. And of course, at the end, we will definitely have a Q&A where you get to talk to everybody and ask specific questions. So again, welcome, Miss Tierra and Tina.
Thank you. Hello.
So Tina and I have spoken a lot, and I call her Mama Bear because Tina made sure that her daughter was not going to be stuck in Dubai. And I find it totally commendable because so often when it's Black folks, ain't nobody coming to get us. But she said, oh, y'all gonna bring my baby home. And she was on TV and newspapers. I mean, I saw her article in Newsweek. I shared that with you. So I'm going to, and Rada has been instrumental, like I said, in getting both of these ladies home. And so Tina and Tierra, you all can just go ahead and start telling us your story, what happened. There's so many misnomers out there, so you get to set the record straight about exactly what was your experience and how you ended up in that situation. And Rada, of course, jump in and add to the story as we go along. So I'm going to mute, and Tierra, please, you and your mom, please tell us about your experience.
You want to start?
No, you can.
Oh, okay. So I'm Tierra's mother, and I pretty much came in the middle of the experience after Tierra had already been charged with the case. It started with the screaming case. She reached out to me to give me an update on what was going on. At that point, she was scared. She thought that she would be stuck there, for an indefinite period of time. She had no idea when she would be coming back.
But wait a minute, Tina, let me back you up because some people may not know.
Do you want me to do the introduction from that point of view, I think?
Tell us how Tierra landed. What was she doing in Dubai?
I'll just give you the overview and then you can just jump in. But essentially, Tina got in touch with me and advised me about her daughter, Tierra, and the troubles that she came across when she was in Dubai. She was in a car accident as the passenger in that vehicle. And the police took the car away, unfortunately, with her belongings in there, in the back seat, I think, and that was her passport, her credit cards. And she was told by the police that she needed to go to the rental car agency and get those documents back from them. But when she went there, she was met with quite a bit of hostility. She was told to go back to the police, and the police said, no, you have to go to them. And then basically that rental car agency started intimidating her, shouting at her. And the next thing she knew, there was a criminal case taken against her for shouting at this officer. The police told her it was for shouting. And so we took that to the media at that point, because sometimes that's the only way to really get someone free in such an urgent situation, because she was facing up to 2 years in prison for shouting at someone. And even though that, he shouted at her and everything else. So from my point of view, and with my experience, I determined that that agency took the criminal case as a mechanism to keep her in the country and extort large sums of money out of her. And eventually he asked her for $10,000, which would have increased if there were no intervention. And in other cases, we've seen people pay $20,000 in these similar circumstances just to get their passport back and out of the country. But then when it went to media, Dubai was obviously very unhappy about the reputation that they were creating for themselves. So they said, okay, now it's not shouting, now it's defamation, slandering, it's abuse. And the charges kept changing, and what the police told Tierra kept changing. At that point, we needed embassy assistance, the assistance of the international media, and the Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. We reached out to Ted Cruz and the US consulate, and eventually facilitated her release. But I mean, that's just the overview. So I'll let you guys jump in and really tell us the gory details.
Okay, so you want to jump in, Tierra?
Sure. So as you guys all may know, I'm the girl that was detained in Dubai for shouting at a rental car firm agency. So how that all started was I was the passenger of a rental car, and all of my belongings were stuck there. So at that point, I was ordered to go back to the rental car agency to get those belongings. And the rental car clerk there, he said that I can get a release slip to get my things from the impound. So at that point, the guy there just went back and forth with me and saying, hey, I'm going to give it to you, or maybe I'm not going to give it to you. So at that point, I thought he was playing like games with me. And so I thought it was a joke at that point. And so from there, that's kind of how the argument between me and the guy started. And he started shouting at me. I shouted back. He followed me out of the office. I left out in tears. I went back home and I called my mom and told her about what was happening. And then from there, that's how we got in touch with Dr. Sterling with Detained in Dubai.
Yes, and I would add that I spent like countless nights sleeping, researching how to find help for my daughter since she was in Dubai, and I didn't have any idea of how to get her any type of legal assistance in the US, in Dubai, since we live in the US. And I actually did a lot of research, and I found other individuals who experienced her similar situation. And several of those individuals were assisted by Miss Rhoda Sterling. And that's how I ended up in contact with her. And she pretty much stepped in and assisted us with the legal side and emotional side of this whole ordeal from there. So that's where our help came in. Rhoda reached out to different sources within the US that she had connections with. She reached out to the consulate. And then she also put out notifications in the media that we did have a US citizen being held or detained in Dubai. From there, I also reached out to our US Congress people, Ms. Sheila Jackson Lee. I reached out to our senator. However, Ms. Jackson Lee was the individual who actually was the most proactive with helping Tierra return back to the US. So pretty much she was the main individual from our side to give the most support with ensuring that Tierra was returned back safely. She had a contact at the US consulate, Mr. Patrick, who was the second in commander, I believe, who stepped in, started communicating with the police department there on behalf of Tierra. He communicated with the rental car companies. He just helped facilitate the entire ordeal and walked her through everything she needed to do. And he helped her from that point on in order to find her safe return back. So,
Rada, would you say that there was a gender issue here? Was there a race issue here? And is it your opinion that it was the public outing of what was happening to Tierra that got her released?
I mean, there's a few factors here, I would say. Number one, the UAE, and people might not know this because it's so multicultural there, and Emiratis themselves only represent a very small percentage of the population. And I mean, Danielle lived there for a long time, so she can probably weigh in on this a little later in the conversation. But absolutely, there's kind of, from Emiratis' points of view, and the Emiratis are the police officers, and they are holding the most prominent jobs in the UAE. But there is absolutely racism that is prevalent in the Emirates, and it starts in sort of order that they favour their own country's citizens, obviously, and then next they favour Gulf nationals, so that's people from Saudi, Qatar, and other Middle Eastern nations. And then after that, they might see white Americans and white Europeans as under that, and they will quite often put Black Americans in the same kind of category as African Americans coming from, you know, Ghana or Nigeria, who they treat extremely badly, who are often abused in their positions in households as employees. And they're definitely, you can even see it in the payment scale that they receive as employees. They will be paid substantially less than other races. So there's absolutely, racism is one of the factors. And we have had not just women, but a lot of Black men as well, Black British nationals who have also been targeted in the same way that Tierra was by these rental car agencies in particular. And we've actually had the police say to them, well, you're not really American, you're African. So your embassy isn't going to help you because you're not really American. So we've actually heard it said by local police officers. We've heard it said by actual judges in the courts of law. So it's that shocking. They're honest about it. They're upfront. They're quite blatantly racist. So that's something that people aren't aware of. And I think, you know, the fact that we're not aware of it is because there's a lot of celebrities that promote the country. There's a lot of people from all different races going there, getting lots of money to perform or do whatever it is that their niche is as a celebrity, and they're getting paid for that. But unfortunately, that gives the impression that it's a really open and tolerant society. And I think the UAE has paid a lot in marketing and advertising and public relations to create that false impression. And the other thing is, obviously, women are generally targeted more than men. That's evidenced over the years by rape victims being jailed for sex outside marriage or adultery, even though they're a rape victim. This has happened time and time again. And even if they've had an absolute defense, a witness and evidence that they've been raped, maybe by their employer, maybe by a complete stranger, and they've actually been jailed. So that started to change in recent years. We did have one case where a British woman fought the police to try to get her assailants charged when she was gang raped. But she was met with so much opposition from the police, who kind of accused her of being a slut, basically. And the only reason she was able to push that is because she wanted to get justice so badly. She went time and time again to the police station to really push them, and they laughed in her face. The British embassy told her, do not pursue it because there's a very high chance you'll be jailed for having sex outside marriage. But she decided to risk it anyway because she didn't want to live in a society. She was an expat. She didn't want to live in a society where people like that got away with it. But the only reason she managed to have her assailants convicted is because there was undeniable CCTV evidence that showed them abducting her, putting her in the car against her will. So you can see that if they're treating women and rape victims like that, and we're not just talking, you know, housekeepers who they disrespect, we're talking about I mean, this woman, for example, she was a celebrity. She was actually on The Apprentice. So that's also maybe one of the reasons she was able to push it as far as she did without being imprisoned. But you can see the kind of disrespect. There is male guardianship still happening in the UAE. And even though you'll see Ivanka Trump, you'll see so many women going out to the UAE to promote women's rights, to participate in the annual Women's Summit, which for some reason took place in the UAE. I can't imagine why. But these kind of events are happening in the UAE, and it's to whitewash the reality of what is actually the truth there. So I think that's, you can also look at the Princess Latifah case. I mean, you have the ruler of Dubai's own daughter who has been locked up, imprisoned. She's almost 40 years old, or a little bit older than 40, and she's seen as a chattel. She's seen as property. She tried to escape the country, and she was on a US flagged yacht in international waters when Sheikh Mohammed sent a military coordinated attack on that US flagged yacht to abduct her and drug her and bring her back to Dubai to then imprison and torture her further. So when you see the ruler's own daughter is being treated in such a disgraceful way that goes against all international standards of human rights and women's rights, and then you see rape victims being jailed for a sex outside marriage, many women can't even work because they might get a job and their husband will ring up the employer and say, no, my wife's not allowed to work there anymore. And the employer will terminate them. And it's strange because you would expect that would only happen to women who are Muslim or who are living in the UAE as Arab women, as Arab expats. But the funny thing is, you will see foreign nationals, you'll see British, German, and American citizens who go over to the UAE with their values, but then when they realize that men can get away with this sort of behavior in the UAE, that it's common, they have in some instances sort of taken on that power and used these laws, abused these legal privileges that they're able to obtain that they would never even dream of doing in their own country. But when they arrive in the UAE, they decide, well, this is common, I'm going to do it. Why not? I can. And a lot of women have got into huge trouble in the UAE for relocating there with children and then being denied access to their children because it almost automatically goes to the father when he wants that custody. So you can see a huge pattern of abuse against women, so many women looking to escape abusive situations from their husband or employer, and not being able to confide in a police officer or seek assistance of the police because the police will support the abuser, the husband. So women are absolutely targeted in that respect. What would you say about that, Danielle?
Well, I guess I'll tell my story, but I'm going to start with the present day.
Let me ask one thing. Tierra, can you tell us, because your mom explained to me that this was not your first trip to Dubai. So what takes you to Dubai and what had been your experiences previously? And Rada, at some point, I want you to talk to us more about what is the scam thing that's happening there and how many other times have you seen it happen? But Tierra, just give us a little bit more background on why you were there and how many times you have been there before. And will you go again?
Well, I'm not going back there. When I
Never.
I'm never going back there ever again in my life. So the first time I went to Dubai, I went with a group of friends. They're truck drivers just like me. We went there for the experience to have fun because we saw it on TV. That would be a very fun place to go and have fun on vacation. So the second time I went, I actually thought about starting like the trucking business there because when I went the first time, I realized that I could make money driving trucks there if I had my own business. So those were some things that I wanted to do when I went back there. So all that took a turn when I ended up getting into an accident when I was the passenger of a rental car. So after that happened, I was like, maybe this was meant to be, because if I would have started a trucking business there, it would have been really bad for me. So this was like a big wake up call for me. But my overall experience in Dubai, I thought it was a very fun place, just to relax. But I never saw it as a place I would want to live the rest of my life there, just maybe for business for the most part.
You're muted, Helen.
Okay, I'm sorry. Danielle comes into the picture and somehow you guys hook up. So Danielle, tell us about your experience and tell us how you hooked up with Tina and Tierra and Rada. Rada did you, I don't know what happened first.
Okay, so I had my situation in Dubai, which I'm going to get to in a second. And that is how I met Rada. Rada helped me. But the way that I was connected with Tierra and Tina is, I'm sure everyone has seen the video about the Alabama brawl by now. And Rada, so to speak, tossed her hat in the air and got my attention. And I came a running. I was like, what do you mean? Look at what's happening to this young Black woman in Dubai. Based on my experience in Dubai, I told Rada, of course, in any way that I can, I will support Tierra. And so I asked Rada for Tierra and Tina's contact information. And from there, I lent my support primarily emotionally. I spoke with Tierra's mom, Tina, several times a day, every day, from the day that I found out about what was happening until the day that Tierra returned to the US. And we still talk almost daily. I went to Dubai initially in, I don't know, maybe 2013 to explore opportunities. I'm a certified public accountant. I graduated from an Ivy League institution. I have Big Four audit experience. I'm a professional Black woman. I can't say I'm a bootstrapper because I was raised in a family of very hardworking people who paved the way for me, starting with my great-grandfather who was a slave. But as we all know on this call, as African Americans, we work hard in this country. So I figured, you know what, I've got some international experience. I had done not a lot, but some work in Europe. And I had always wanted to work internationally. And so I went to explore Dubai. And then I went back in the end of 2015. I had received an offer, which was more a business offer from a boutique accounting practice owned by a British woman. And so we struck a deal. And as we say in my profession, you eat what you kill. So I was not paid a salary. I was getting clients and performing services for my clients. She and I had a deal, a revenue sharing arrangement. And I also was under her visa because you cannot work in Dubai without a work visa. So my visa was tied to her company. So in essence, she was my employer. So I worked with them for about a year, and then she decided to sell the practice to a young Australian woman who I knew because she worked in the practice. So she sold the company to this young Australian woman. I decided not long after that I would pursue my own business in Dubai. And so I'm gonna break off from that for 1 second because I do need to tell you what I did learn on my exploratory trip, or maybe when I first came back. An Irish American woman who I had become friends with was giving me all sorts of advice. And one piece of advice that she gave me was, if you are ever in a taxi and that taxi has a car accident, get out and run. And I said, what do you mean get out and run? And she said, because when a car accident occurs, the police take everyone to jail. Just get out and run. She said, but make sure you pay the taxi driver, because if you don't, that is a criminal case. So even if you have to ball the money up and throw it at the taxi driver, pay that taxi driver, but don't stay in that taxi. So because I had explored Dubai, then I moved there and I lived there for 5.5 years, I developed certain knowledge and wisdom. Tierra was there really as a tourist. So she wouldn't know that when you get in a car accident, your life and liberty is on the line in Dubai. You don't know that as a tourist. Most tourists don't know that if you land in Dubai and you decide that you want to hang out at the hotel bars and drink, you are breaking the law because you are supposed to have a liquor license to drink in Dubai, which runs you about, I don't know, $100. You are not allowed to drink alcohol if you don't have this license. Well, tourists don't know that. That's why when I was reading in the media, people, mainly a lot of them, our people, saying, you need to know the laws before you go, traveling. You need to do this. I mean, how much are you going to read before you go on vacation? How many people know that if you go to Dubai and you drink and you get drunk and somehow the police are involved, you're in big trouble. So even though Dubai looks like a fun place and they bill themselves as this great destination, there are plenty of booby traps involved in going to that country. Anyway, so back to my story. I just need to let you know that you could be completely innocent and end up in a lot of trouble in Dubai. Now, in my situation, I decided I wanted to start my own accounting practice. I worked hard. I felt as though I owed it to myself. So I hired what they call PROs, public PROs. What does it stand for again, Rod? I forgot. Public, anyway, they're consultants and they do the legwork to get your trade license, to get your visa, and to just keep you legal. So being a licensed auditor and a compliance professional, I said, I'm going to get a consultant to make sure that I am compliant with the UAE legal system. In the process, he says to me, give me your power of attorney since you are traveling so much. That way I can get your paperwork started, so on and so forth. Well, once again, this is customary in Dubai. These PROs, they're public relations officers. They almost cannot function if they don't have their client's power of attorney, because they have to sign off on government documents, go pay fees, and so on and so forth. So I gave him my power of attorney, and that's where I made my huge mistake. Because when he processed my paperwork, in his mind, he was cutting a corner and really breaking the rules and breaking the law under my name when he got my trade license and processed my visa. So when my employer discovered that A, she's going to become my competitor, B, this guy got her trade license on this date, but she didn't, leave my employee until that date. He processed my license 6 weeks too early. I was not running my company. I was still running my business through her company. But because he processed the paperwork 6 weeks too early, that was what she used to basically attack me. She attacked me economically. She told my clients not to pay their bills. So she owed me, I'm in the Middle East by myself, supporting myself. And she tells my clients, you don't need to pay your final bills. It's like $10,000 out there that I need. So she withheld $10,000 from me. Then she raised a civil case against me, claiming that I cost her business, I think it was like 150,000 US dollars, something ridiculous. And then when the courts forced her to pay me my money, and trust and believe I had to work hard to get the court system to make her pay. But when they said, no, you must pay her. And then the civil court said, no, you don't have your suit can't hold water. She went after me criminally because of what the PRO did. And that's where my nightmare, it didn't begin there. It began when she withheld my money. But once she went after me criminally, and I realized because he did all of this under my power of attorney, and then he turned around and he lied on me, I was in big trouble. Dubai, the government blocked my passport for 1.5 years. For a large portion of that time, I was still functioning. I was working. I had clients. I watched my clients go through stuff. And I'm like, how did I end up here? When I looked at YouTube one day and I saw Princess Latifah, her video, and her video said, if you are watching this, that means I am not in a good place and I am in trouble. My passport is blocked and I'm watching the Sheikh's daughter say this on YouTube. So now I'm terrified. Then one day I discover that the Sheikh's wife, Princess Haya, basically escaped. She is royalty from the country of Jordan. She escaped with her 2 children and a bunch of money. But she had to escape. And I'm like, okay, that's a daughter and a wife. And I'm a Black American woman stuck here fighting a battle. You know, it was terrifying. Now, I knew that Rada was involved with the Princess Latifah case. I was terrified to reach out to her. I was like, she's fighting the Sheikh. You know, if I call her, who knows what might happen. But because I couldn't get any movement, I was like, I'm reaching out to Rada. Now, when Rada began to help me, Rada could get 1 newspaper article, 1, published about my situation. Okay, 1. And Rada explained to me, Danielle, you didn't come over here as a tourist. You weren't like the guy, this happened after I left, the guy who drank a lot and smoked, he smoked marijuana in Nevada, jumped on a plane, flew to Dubai, landed sick. They had to cart him off to the hospital. This man's laying up in the hospital and they come to him and say, we'd like to draw your blood. And they drew his blood and they found marijuana in his system. They blocked his passport and threatened him with jail and prison. So my case wasn't like that. Mine was a white paperwork crime. Mine was a result of a woman from Australia who was privileged, a privileged young white woman who went to the police with her white tears. Yes, I'm going to say it because that's what she did. And cried, how dare this woman become my competitor? She's supposed to work for me. I'm like, you didn't buy me. You did not buy my CPA license, okay? You did not buy my background and my education. You bought a business over here. You did not purchase me. So now you're making me feel like chattel too. So I'm really getting all kinds of PTSD in Dubai, okay? And then on top of that, I didn't know that, about the Middle East role in the transatlantic slave trade. So I'm like, I'm over there learning a lot, okay? Anyway, Rada eventually gets involved in my case and she's supporting me. I'm reaching out to everybody, trying to get help, okay? Now, I will say about Tierra's situation, Tierra is my hero, okay? Because Tierra is the one, not me, because nobody knew about me. Tierra they messed with the wrong one. I'm like, oh, y'all want to mess with an influencer? A Black female influencer? Have at it. Have at it.
And an influencer who had a mama bear.
That's right. A mama who wasn't going to give up. Okay, and Tierra and I have that in common because my mother is in her 90s. She was in her 90s when it happened, okay? And she wasn't having it either. So, but the other lesson in this story is, Black women in America need to understand that we are all we have, okay? We are all we have. We must lean on each other, okay? So I was able to fight and scream, yes, scream, in writing my way out of Dubai. I'm just gonna say, the right people heard me finally. But had it not been for my faith in myself, I would still be trapped in that country, withering away, with no way to make money, no way to support myself. I know someone there in that situation right now who must make money online because they have been trapped there for 15, 20 years because of their archaic legal system. So when I'm sorry.
Danielle, you were never under house arrest or anything like that. You just
I
couldn't
was
get
at
your
risk. I was at risk. If I went to the mall shopping and the police identified me as wanted, they could have dragged me to jail.
Well, I mean, Danielle, didn't they sentence you to a few months in prison already for one of those allegations?
Oh, not a few months. I think it was a year or two.
Okay, so and every time you go to the Mall of the Emirates, if there's any issue whatsoever, their facial recognition technology will pick you up and the police will turn up. Just a few weeks ago, someone I know was arrested at the mall, and anyone who has issue there who's on a travel ban, and they go to the mall, they're probably going to be taken to the police. Even if the police don't decide to imprison them, they will keep rearresting them and they'll hold them each time for maybe a day or 2 days. And I know another American veteran actually, and he's been detained on, I think it's 26 occasions. Like every time he goes out of the house, he gets detained, released, detained, released. It's insane, isn't it? I mean, and
like,
frightening.
That's like profiling at a whole new level.
Listen, and
Yes.
COVID was my friend, okay? Because then everybody had to wear masks, right?
Yes.
So, so luckily, that never happened to me. But I was terrified nonetheless. And, I told, and I was like very active in the business community there. I was respected. And I told my friends, I was like, they're gonna clean my name before I leave this country. So one of my best friends there said, "You mean you're not gonna leave if they don't clear your name?" I said, "I didn't say that." I said, "But I am getting my name cleared. They need to clear this mess up." And at the end of the day, because I am a fighter, okay, I am a fighter, and I believed in myself, and I, of course, I'm a Christian. I have faith in God. Someone even said, "Oh, if you convert to Islam, they might take it easy on you." And I said, "Well, we won't be doing that."
And I can guarantee that's not the case. I've had several people try to convert to Islam. Exactly. And it certainly hasn't helped them. And it hasn't really helped them get that help from the US Embassy either.
Wow. Okay, there you go.
So talk about that, Danielle. And let me say that I don't remember how we met Danielle, but I met Danielle when she was still trapped in Dubai. Mm-hmm. So I can attest for the fact that she was tenacious. And I know sometimes she would call and, her spirits would be low, but she always bounced back. So I kind of went through with her,
what
she dealt with. So what was this response? I mean, like, this is happening so much. What is the American Embassy doing? Is it worth going to them or what?
The embassy will assist you, in my opinion, if the right people reach out to them, or in Tierra's case, the media was all over Tierra's story. I mean, I was like, this is what I wanted, but that's not what I got.
Well, even Fox News covered Tierra's story.
Fox News.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the GOP, the Democrats, everybody was on top of Tierra's story. And
I mean, it was similar to Peter Clark's in that one, and this is the gentleman who smoked hashish legally in Nevada before traveling to the UAE. So I think with the tourist cases, it's much easier for us to get that media support, and that media support helps us get the support of Congress representatives or senators, who then sort of work it up the chain to the US State Department and the embassy to let them know that they're serious about this case and they want to see something done. There's political advantage for them, or maybe sometimes they are just being quietly supportive as well. And as in Danielle's case, but at the US Embassy, if an American thinks that they're going to get help, if they go to Dubai and they get into trouble and they go to the US Embassy, they will be handed a list of lawyers and, told to hire one of them and basically don't contact the US Embassy again. They don't
Yes.
want to get involved.
Yes.
They want nothing to do with it, do they? So you
Look.
really have to go through this process of escalation to get the US consulate
have to
to
get
even do
Rada.
anything.
But wait a
You have to
minute.
get Rada.
Tiara, you didn't have a place to stay. Like, you were out of money. I mean, they had your credit cards, they had it. So talk about how desperate your situation was.
And then
Well,
let's
I
talk
had-
about how I had to live without water after that. Because they had my passport. We're gonna talk about that too.
Go ahead, Tierra. So tell them what your situation was. Like, there you were. Thank God you had your mother, because what was your situation?
Well, my mom came in for financial assistance like the last third month I was there. And luckily the Airbnb that I was staying at, they were nice enough to like kind of hold off on payments and let me kind of pay them later. But they didn't really know about my situation at the moment. So that's kind of how I moved through the struggle of that. So my mom came in and helped. And before that, I kind of had money saved up, a little cash that I did have on me before I ended up running out of funds.
I would also add that she was able to order new credit cards from there, and I would take a picture of the cards, and she was able to get a temporary phone to use. And I would send her a picture of her information so that she would upload it to the Apple iPay, and she could use that eventually after a few weeks to assist with, paying for her cost of living and everything that was needed to survive there. Then I helped out when needed, basically.
But just imagine if you didn't have the resources that you have through your mother, and you're just a young woman who went there on a 2-week vacation, you got a job to get back to. I mean, luckily you were self-employed. I would imagine you were not on the internet while you were there. You were just trying to get out. Or were you?
Oh, no.
No, money
my
came
face.
to a halt. She was not able to make money. They wanted money, but being stuck there, she couldn't make money, including being on the internet. She's an influencer, and she was advised, just stay off because we don't want you to put yourself at risk by posting anything that could be taken the wrong way. So she wasn't able to make money in any way, shape, or form while she was there. So money was
I want
constantly
people-
going out, but none was coming in.
Right. So I emphasize that because many people on this call might take a vacation, and they need to understand that this is a reality that could happen to you. And
Right.
do you have a plan B? I personally would run out of money very quickly. And where are you going to stay? And then Rada, if you could talk a little bit more about the scams that you see happening, and what was the potential scam that was,
I mean, on that issue, I'd also say, like, how many people have become homeless, have faced, wanting to kill themselves? I think everyone in the
Illegal.
situation has been through that point. Now, and some of them have actually told the police, I'm suicidal, I want to kill myself. And the police have said, are you sure you want to say that to me? Because it's illegal to threaten suicide. It's illegal. So they can actually arrest you and put you in jail for being suicidal. So people have to be careful about their language. But in this situation, if people don't have family support, or they're not very well off, or, they've had to spend perhaps $20,000 or more, if they hire a lawyer there, they're often starting between $10,000 and $50,000 because they see a foreigner, they see an American, and they want to get the maximum payment from them. So they can end up charging. Sometimes people have received quotes of $100,000 because they were charged with a residual hashish in their blood, or taking a painkiller, prescription medicine, even with a prescription, and the lawyer said $50,000. So, and some of them have actually had to hire those lawyers, and the costs end up blowing out, and they're literally facing homelessness. They're on the streets, and begging is illegal. Being in that situation is illegal. And there are so many people still stuck in the UAE, not able to earn an income, on travel bans, some of which went over as tourists, in fact, and they're stuck there, and really difficult to get them home, especially depending on their embassy and the embassy's commitment to that. Sorry, Danielle, you were going to say something?
No, it's just, I just wanted to also emphasize this, people can be very cold. The police had my passport. I had just moved from one apartment to another.
Mm.
I had to live in my brand new apartment. I think it was for like 4 weeks with no water. because I was not able to finish getting my visa process. You can't do anything in Dubai without a visa. I was lucky that I had the apartment already, but you can't rent an apartment. You can't get your utilities turned on, nothing. And those police at that police station knew that I needed to get my utilities turned on. They didn't care. They didn't care. So I had to go to, I just was relentless. I went there almost daily. Can I have my passport? Can I have my, I mean, they probably said, you know, what kind of person is this? You know, well, I'm a Black American woman and we're pretty relentless. You know, we got an interesting history that you all may not appreciate, you know, and I eventually got the passport and I was able to handle my business, but it was still blocked in their system. So, you know, and eventually when everything was all said and done, apologies were made, and, you know, I left Dubai with dignity intact. I didn't have to like scurry away, but it still was a bad experience. I would never go back, and I would never encourage Black people to take their money there. Go to Ghana, go to the motherland,
Oh, Ghana.
go to the Caribbean, go, you know, but don't go, especially as women. You know, a white woman on social media sent me a message and said, honey, never go to a place where women are the insurgent. And that is a reality, you know? And so I learned a very hard lesson. It has nothing to do with reading the laws. You need to really, really appreciate the culture that you're going to land in. That's my take. And
it's nothing to do with reading the laws. And I mean, I know there was a lot of talk about that in the various news stations that you interviewed with Tierra. And, you know, a lot of them are saying you need to know the law, you need to know the culture, you need to be sensitive to that culture, act in a certain way and that kind of thing. And of course, that's true. But if I've had this battle with the US Embassy, the British Embassy for 10 years now. I've told them that their travel warnings on the US State Department and the British Foreign Office are insufficient. They do absolutely not cover most of the things that people actually run into trouble for. They disguise them. And I've said to the British Embassy, you know, I've had, let's say, 12 people arrested under this particular law this year. Would you care to put that on your travel warnings? And they've blatantly said, no, we don't want to upset the UAE. And it's the same for the US State Department as well. The relationship, the diplomatic relationship and ties between the United States, the United Kingdom and the UAE are so important to them that they don't want to ruffle the feathers. They don't want to upset them. And even if that's at the expense of citizens. So there's a lot of issues like this rental car problem. And, you know, Tierra's case is definitely not the first. And you were going to ask me about the extortion element of it. But what we've seen is multiple times rental car agencies, and particularly the ones that aren't, you know, budget Avis Europe car. So it's more the luxuries or the independents that we tend to have issues with. And what they do is they take they set up situations where they, for example, won't give a passport back to a client just to antagonize them, try to set them off, try to, you know, create an argument just for the sole purpose that they can go down and make a police complaint, have them arrested, and then they will say, give me $5,000, give us $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is, and we'll give the passport back. Otherwise, even though our allegation is false, it's going to go to court. And it takes anywhere between, it used to be 3 to 4 months to get to that first court hearing, but now people are having to wait anywhere up to 8, 9 months, maybe even longer for a court hearing. So as a tourist, you simply can't afford to stay in a foreign country for 9 months when you just went there for 2 weeks or a week.
And such an expensive country.
And you know, I'm gonna tell you something that an older cousin said to me years ago, because honestly, you can run into trouble anywhere on this globe. My thing is, as Black women, we are, I believe we are much more vulnerable because they feel like, oh, she's a Black woman. We, just like what Rada said, they will lump you.
Come get us.
Right.
All of us don't have a Baxter as our mother.
Yes.
Who cares? You know, who cares? And that is a reality. I had an older cousin, a very successful man, who said to me, explore your own country. Do you know how beautiful America is? You know, and I'm like, well, you have a point there. And at least, you know, the culture, the laws, and so on and so forth. There are plenty of places that we as Americans can visit. Our country is beautiful. Okay. So we can start there. There are nooks and crannies of this country that I know I would love to see that I have never experienced, where I would probably have very unique experiences. And then though, like I said, you know, I would explore Africa. I lived in the US Virgin Islands, but there's plenty of other islands I've never been to, you know, and I like Europe and I'd like to see Asia, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm not going back to the Middle East. I'm not going back to any country in the Middle East. I'm not doing it.
So, you know, I travel a lot. And actually my first country in Africa was Egypt, which is very Muslim. Not as Muslim as
I've been there a couple of times. Yeah, it's quite.
But I remember them telling us, you know, when they prepare you before you come, I stayed for a month, but, you know, don't show your arms, don't do this, you know, men can't be held responsible for, you know, whatever. And I remember, you know, when I'm there in June and that's not even their hottest season. It's hot though.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a summer bunny. So of course I didn't disrespect the culture, but I wasn't going to run around for, you know, a month with long sleeves. And it was very interesting because I was there with a friend who was in the military. So when he would go to work, I would get out and venture and ride the buses and what have you. And, you know, the Muslim women would be covered in black, y'all, completely in black. All they had out was their eyes, and they even had on black gloves. They were covered in black from head to foot. And, you know, and some of them you could see in their eyes, they would be looking at me with like, you know, and mind you, I might have had on something like I have on right now. I was not wearing hoochie stuff, but, you know, some of them would be looking at you with, you know, absolute contempt, like, how dare you? And then others were looking at you like they were just longing to, you know, like, you're so lucky. You could see it in their eyes. But, you know, outside, and I remember going to, I was going to stay there. So I had made arrangements to meet a family, a woman who worked for AT&T, because I worked for a telecom back then. And I was going to stay for the whole 18 months, but I only stayed 30 days. And that's a whole nother story that we can talk when it's just girls on the phone. But, you know, I remember going to their house and we didn't know what to take for dinner because we're thinking they're Muslim. Don't take any pork. Don't take any what. Man, these people were not Muslim. They had pork, they had liquor, they had all of it. And they explained to me that while Egypt is a Muslim country, it's also the, you know, the most beautiful or most famous belly dancers come from Egypt. So I say all that to say that, you know, you should know the country that you're going to as much as you can. I personally would not travel to like Saudi Arabia. I'm not interested in it at all because I'm not interested. I will not, you know, walk around, and I don't knock them. That's what they do. I'm not going to go there and disrespect their customs. So I won't go there. But I think the problem that we have with Dubai is because Dubai bills itself as this playground of the rich.
That's the issue. It makes out that it's this really tolerant and accepting society, and you see on Instagram and all over the place the pictures of, you know, women in skimpy clothes, and there's gay people like Ricky Martin going there, putting on shows, promoting being homosexual in the UAE. And then there's all of these promotions on social media for clubs of the same thing. But the penalty for being charged for homosexuality under their laws is actually still death. So it's insane to me that people would support a country that still has that law, and even encourage people who would be at risk of being charged under those laws to go to the country and do social media promotion. I find that abhorrent. On the skimpy clothes thing as well. I mean, you would think that you can go and wear short skirts and little, you know, singlets and crop tops and that sort of thing. But if you go to the mall, you can actually be arrested for that. You can be charged. You can face a prison sentence.
Escorted out.
So many women have, you probably remember, Danielle, I mean, over the past 10 years, so many women have been arrested for a slogan on a t-shirt that they don't like.
I was with a friend.
Or
the
showing
mall.
their arms, showing
Yeah.
the arms in public. Also, exactly.
My friend, she had, I think, a little bit too much cleavage showing, and the mall security basically told us we had to leave the mall.
Mm.
And, you know, I have a friend over there now, young Filipina guy who I don't even want to mention which industry he works in. He's successful, he's handsome, and he is out and gay. And today I saw him on social media, he and his partner, you know, snuggling and gorgeous pictures. But I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared for you because they're in Dubai, you know, and I'm like, they're making you feel like you can do this, but if somebody gets jealous of you because you're a little too successful, you know, and a lot of times that is what happens. It is like, to me, I felt like I was like literally in the Old Testament of the Bible, walking through the desert. You know, I'm like, this feels Testament, Cain and Abel. People are angry because you have decided to do something different or to try to better yourself. So they use that legal system to attack you. That happens a lot in Dubai. I watched a client go through that. Young 35-year-old man. I watched them basically, he almost disappeared and he had to escape. Why? Because someone wanted what he had built as a bootstrapper. And he was
You know what's interesting with all of this?
American.
You've got the United States telling African countries that who are trying to, and who also have very strict laws against homosexuality, and you know, we're going to withhold your funding and this, that, and whatever. And they're not saying a word to these countries, you know.
No, they will not offend the Middle East. And I think increasingly now, because of the issues with Ukraine, Russia, they don't want to push the Middle East. They're so afraid that they're going to team up with China and go in the other direction. So that's given the Middle Eastern countries a green light to increase the kind of abuse that we see against citizens visiting the country, but also outside the country with their unlawful activities. You know, they might be violating sanctions, they might be conducting human trafficking, drugs cartel, hiding, you know, financial criminals that the US is after. The US turns an absolute blind eye to all of that behavior, and that's only increasing. So it's really concerning how that might end up, and whether the power of our countries is going to diminish as far as our ability to help people who are facing these situations there. So, I mean, Tierra and Danielle, great stories, great outcomes, but there's no guarantee that people in that situation will ever get that support again. Each case is different, and the US does not get involved with every case, and sometimes they just want to turn a blind eye. And especially if the UAE diplomats want to dig their heels in, or maybe they really took a disliking to a tourist or their behavior, or the way they spoke to a police officer and he took it personally. So for personal reasons, if they decide to dig their heels in, they can really jail someone. They can keep them in prison for years. And we have American citizens who have not committed any crimes who are still in jail today. So that's something to be aware of as well.
Rana, how did you get into this? And you obviously operate outside of, you operate from London, I'm assuming.
Yes, yes. No, I don't think the UAE
They don't
would
want to see you
allow me in the country. Yes, I think I'd be deported on arrival. Hopefully deported. Hopefully not arrested. So over the past 15 years now, we've helped about 20,000 people. That's mostly in the UAE, but also further afield. So we've seen everything, these tourist cases, these abuse of women's rights. I was called by Princess Latifah as she was being abducted from that yacht. And we've seen all of the business cases, expats like Danielle, professionals who have been targeted by vindictive either business partners, employers, or it could be anyone that just takes that disliking to you. And the same works for tourists. So you might see women walking around in skimpy clothes, but if one woman takes offense to that and reports you to the security guard at the mall, he will act on it and he'll call the police and you'll be arrested. So what I would say is there's a lot that goes on in the UAE, and they promote it as, look at all of this that's going on in the UAE. We're so tolerant and open, and you can be gay, you can wear skimpy clothes. But the reality is the law still prohibits that conduct, but you will see everyone conducting themselves in that way. So it's really confusing as a visitor. You'll see people drinking alcohol, but you don't realize that if you drink alcohol and you're targeted and your blood is tested, you can go to prison for that. So it's really contradictory. And I would rather that they either enforce the law or they change the law. But having this confusing situation for expats is what has led to a lot of problems in the past, I think. But I mean, just as far as, for example, if you're driving a car, someone cuts you off, and this is a real case scenario. I've had a client in this position. Someone cut him off. He honked his horn, and they then went to the police station and opened a criminal case against him, saying that he had given them a rude gesture in traffic, which he absolutely had not. And then they came to him, and the complainant, and said, if you pay me $5,000, I will drop the case against you. So sometimes you even get people taking advantage of the very poor justice system there and using it to extort funds from people. And individuals, a lot of individuals kind of see that as a second income. It's a second business for them, whether it's a rental car agency or just a private individual who likes to take complaints about foreigners, knowing that they can just demand money from them and the foreigner will pay.
And if you're an Arab, you know, like the guy that had my power of attorney, he understood the game. You know, I'm just like a lone little Black American woman over there, you know, trying to run a business. He knew the game. That man came to me and said, I'll pay you $30,000 if you say you did it. Because I made sure he was in trouble, because he almost walked away scot-free. They were willing to let him walk. And I said, you will not let him walk. I said,
not when you've had to suffer, obviously. No. Yeah.
You will not let him walk. You need to interview this. And a lot of the Arabs over there that were decent, the government officials, I said, you must interview this person at this government agency. And they knew that this guy had done all of this, not me. And so he ended up in just as much trouble as I was in. And he came and said, I'll pay you. He sent someone, I'll pay you $30,000. I said, I will never, ever say that I did this, because you did it. I'm a certified public accountant. If you think I'm going to put my integrity on the line, you're out of your mind. Nowhere on this globe. I don't care if it's Timbuktu. I'm not saying I did committed a crime, you know, like this. Are you crazy? So then he comes back, okay, $100,000. I was like, nope. And then when I finally got it all resolved, his went away too. They let him go, knowing that he was the culprit.
Wow.
Because I fought. They were like, well, we got to let him go too, you know? So, you know, if you go there, you just better have an extra bank account to bribe folk, because that's how that economy operates. That's how they operate.
But a lot of countries are like that. Like I say, it's not just there. Right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So Tierra and Tina, talk a little bit about you know, the negative press that you were getting here in the United States, because there were a lot of stories about, you know, she shouldn't have went over there doing this. That.
I don't think there was actually any negative press. I think there were a lot of negative comments and kind of podcasts.
I didn't mean to say press. You're right. Social media. And you know, and it was some of us who were even coming down on you as a Black woman. So talk about that if you want to.
Well, I think a lot of people didn't necessarily know the facts, so they only went with how the news presented me and made me out to be as a Black woman. So some people didn't get the full story of what really happened. So people portrayed me as some ghetto loud rude Black woman, when that was not the case at all. I was actually just a young woman trying to explore, have fun, travel the world like anyone else would do, and they took my situation out of context.
And the comments were, the media was pretty fair, I would say, but the comments amongst our people, races, were awful. Many of them were awful because people were choosing their own narrative, you know, just going with missing pieces of information, passing judgment based on
Mm.
the
And it was
color
really
of skin.
upsetting. I mean,
Yes,
it was very
It was,
upsetting at
yeah.
the time.
We've
wasn't
even
it?
received threats. I've saved one, I actually posted one about a few days ago where she was threatened by an individual who wished that she was shot 15 times and then ran over by a truck. And I've been saving some of those type comments because they've been disturbing, to say the least, that someone would take this so seriously that they feel like it's okay to threaten to take her life. I've received like comments
And that's shocking. Yeah.
that were just like outrageous, geared towards me as a mother, being a Black woman, standing up for my daughter. Like most people with a child in this similar situation would do whatever they can to bring their child back to their home. I received several threats, but I will say thank you to the community of people who did show support. In particular, our Black women showed up and showed out. And our Black women actually are the segment of the population that got me out of bed on my worst days to keep fighting. So Danielle, she reached out, oh my God, when she found out that we were going through this experience, she started calling, everyday checking. There are different women in the community that reached out to me and showed support. It was just phenomenal. And even though we did receive all of those negative comments and threats, it just was overwhelming to me to receive so much support from the Black women in our community who stood on behalf of us, and at the bare minimum in support of a mother, going through this situation. So, the comments to us are kind of like irrelevant because they didn't determine whether she had the ability to come back or stay there. But the support, the emotional support that we received was out of this world. And that made a world of a difference because it gave me that boost to keep fighting.
Yeah, we were there for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we see this a lot actually, is someone's put in prison and you see the social media responses and they're shocking. He must be guilty, obviously he's a drug dealer, this kind of thing. We had a family man who was a veteran. He was arrested and he was detained in a very terrible prison, notorious for human rights violations, beatings by police. And it took a year before he was finally acquitted, and they realized that they had arrested the wrong person. They arrested maybe 20 people at the same time. And they only arrested him because he had his neighbor's telephone number in his address book. And that was the only evidence they had against him. But all of the social media comments, his parents were getting so upset because they're seeing it seems like, and it's not the case, like you said, you had a lot of support, but when you see the negative, it seems to have a lot more impact on you at that time, I think, because you're already down, you're already at the worst point in your life, and whether you're just detained there on a travel ban or whether you're in prison, like this is the most frightening time in your whole life. You don't know whether you're going to end up in jail for the next 2 years, and you're seeing these comments on social media. You're seeing, like in your case, Tierra, people were making podcasts and YouTube videos and all sorts of, TikToks, I think, as well. I tried not to watch any, and I tried to tell you not to have a look at these comments, don't read them, but it's still just horrendous. And when they realize, when you get out and you tell the whole story and they realize the facts of the story and that they were wrong, I don't think they care, because this is just going to happen over and over again. And I think it's just a lesson that we always just need to focus on the positive and ignore that negative energy, because it's everywhere these days, isn't it?
And it's easy, they call them, people are strong, nasty on a keyboard, but face to face, they're not. Listen, before Danielle has to leave us, she has a flight to catch, but I wanted to open it up to anybody. If you have a question for Danielle before she goes, can you please pose it? We'll continue with Tierra and Rada and Tina, but for anybody who has a question for Danielle, just unmute and do your thing, please, or raise your hand. I guess I should say raise your hand. Use your apparatus to raise your hand and I'll call on you. If anybody has a question, please now. Anybody? Don't see any hands. Okay. So on that note, Danielle, thank you so much. I've been wanting to tell your story, so I'm so glad you squeezed me into your busy
Aw.
schedule.
I didn't want to tell my story before because I felt all alone, and sadly, I have a company now.
Yes.
And where are you living now? If that's for me, I live in my hometown of Philadelphia.
Yeah. she's
And
a
I
Philly
will
girl.
say that I have a keen appreciation for living in the United States after that experience. I went through that during the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor episode. And I remember seeing people on social media saying, I'm
She
leaving.
was aggressive with Brianna's mama too, y'all. Woo,
Oh yeah, I had a group for Brianna, and I was mortified when I read her story as I was trapped in Dubai, and I was like, wow, we can't go open a business while Black anywhere on the globe. We can't sleep while Black. What is going on?
Wait a minute,
And-
Danielle, before you go, there's two
Sure,
questions
I
I
see.
see. I always mess up your name, Haraya and Demetrius. So go ahead, Haraya, you go first.
Yes, good afternoon, family. I am really just horrified at listening to these reports. But I'm also feeling very blessed because Helen, I'm just thinking about the experience that I had in Dubai when I went to go visit my daughter who was working and teaching there. And at that time I was in a mobility scooter. And thank God my health is better. I'm walking with assistance, but I'm not in the scooter anymore. But I had no problem taking the scooter over on the flight. But when I was ready to leave, a French a representative of the airline told me they couldn't find my scooter. And of course,
Wait a minute, I do want to hear your story, but Danielle needs to go. So and we'll come back to your story, but do you have a question for Danielle specifically? And then we'll come back to your situation.
No, I just am thankful that she was able to survive and she was able to get home. But no, I don't have a question.
Okay, so hold tight. I'll come back to you. Demetrius, do you have a question for Danielle?
Yes, Danielle, and also to Tierra and also Tina as well. As a Black man, I'm not representing all Black men, but as a Black man, it hurt me to hear about your story. And particularly in this forum, of course, is Black women. And, when I heard Danielle say that Black women, we are all we got here in America, in the world, that kind of struck me as well, because I have daughters and I have a mother that I love. And a wife. And the thing is, the question that I have also is, what can Black men do? Because it's very important that Black men stand up alongside Black women, or really in front of Black women, because I'm a protector and that's just what I do. And that's what really struck me when I heard that you were in vulnerable positions. And, so that's just my question. How can we as Black men stand with you? Because if the Arabs, which they protect their women to a certain extent, or they say that they protect their women, but they are very abusive to women, their own women, and obviously women who travel there. But when they see that Black men or men of other cultures don't respect their women, that gives them carte blanche to just go ahead and just do what they do. So again, the bottom line is, my question is, what can we do, or what can I do as a Black man to bring attention and support both of you?
Well, I would say to hold your brothers accountable when they do things like jump on social media and attack a 29-year-old woman like Tierra and basically talk about her, and they don't even know her, I thought that the behavior on social media was horrendous. I was angry for both Tina and Tierra. And I can only believe that had I gotten that level of media coverage, same thing would have happened to me, because I did see some negative comments, on the one article that was published. Even my article was shared, but one journalist, who, by the way, is a Black man, a young Black man wrote the story for the Miami Herald about me. And I'm gonna put a celebrity out there. I mean, I got to know a lot of people because I am resourceful. Okay.
Yeah. If I told you who helped her, it would blow your mind. She is resourceful.
Look, all I could think of was those days that I spent working 40 hours a week and dragging myself to Wharton's undergraduate program in the evenings at the University of Penn and killing myself to pass that CPA exam. And I was like, and you think you're just gonna make me disappear? I don't think so, And one of the celebrities that I reached out to, and I got their home number, was the comedian Monique. Nobody can say anything bad to me about Monique and her husband. Because when I reached out to them and the husband answered the phone, he was like, how'd you get this number? And, I had a client in Dubai who had to raise a lot of money for some very important people. And I got to know the tools that she used. And I used the tools that she used to reach out to people on my own behalf. And Monique's husband, Sidney, talked to me through that process. And he tried to, help me. He was willing to, he got me some media exposure, but at that point I was terrified to even speak to the media. And I didn't move forward at that point. But Monique and her husband were very supportive of me, and they did not know me. I could have been anybody calling their house. That woman let a woman call her husband and speak to her husband. She didn't know who I was. And they were very, very kind to me. So I'm not saying that we are all we have, but I would tell this to Black people across the board. We have to support one another. We can't beat up on one another and then go holler racism. And so the same goes for Black women. We got to support each other, And that's, I guess, the real point that I made about any group, any group that is in a culture that tries to marginalize them. You must stick together, you must. And
For sure, we already know we're in these vulnerable situations. There's already this expectation that, it's Black people. I never worried about being taken hostage or anything before Barack Obama became president, because everybody know they're not coming to get Black people anyway. But then when Barack became president, I thought, I gotta be a little more cautious, because they might assume because there's a Black man in the White House, they will come get us. But prior to that, it was not even a consideration. But since we know that we're and Rada told us, even the judges say, yeah, you're American, but you're not really, you're like African. So we're not coming to get you. So we already know that. So then when we have our own people here in the United States, like bad mouthing us, that just gives them fuel.
Yes.
To say we can treat, not only Black women, but Black men too.
And do you know what, that can actually have an impact, if it got to the point where those social media comments ended up changing the narrative of the headlines in the media. The US Embassy might be less supportive, the police in Dubai might be less supportive. It's already a hard enough battle for us, because we have Dubai's press office often trying to cover up their wrongdoing and hide the embarrassment from the media. So they often falsify statements about some clients who are in those situations. And I have to battle with that to make sure their fake narrative doesn't take off in the media. But if they also see that people are attacking someone like Tierra, for example, in the media, if they took that on board, maybe they would just say to the US Embassy, look, we're not going to let her go, no matter what you say. No one likes her. It's not affecting our tourism, clearly. People are still going to come to Dubai, as we can see in the social media comments. And a similar situation, Tierra, the abuse that you got over this case was substantial. And I could only compare it to another particular case of a British woman who she was arrested for having a glass of wine on a plane. And this plane was Emirates Airlines. So their national airline gave her a glass of wine. When she went through immigration, the immigration officer asked if he could, didn't ask, he demanded a urine test, which she had to provide. And it showed that she had alcohol. She wasn't over a limit, because there is no limit in the UAE. Any alcohol, no matter how small that amount is illegal. And she was detained just for a short time, but she was not allowed to leave the country. And nobody would believe that she was possibly arrested over having a glass of wine. People thought it must be something else. She must have yelled at the immigration officer. She's obviously guilty of some other crime. And they really attacked her, significantly went after her, tried to change headlines even about the case, and it was really confusing to media. But in the end, I got a document from the police that said she has been charged with the alcohol that was in her blood that the airline gave her, and it was it was 1 glass of wine, but you know how they're quite small on a plane anyway. And the abuse that she suffered, like, she was so traumatized by that, and it took her so long to get over it, even after she got home. And I just think it's frightening. So definitely, I would say, Demetrius, is that when you see people hating on, others in that situation, yes, calling them out, or at least showing your positive support, is probably the best thing that can be done at the moment. But maybe there's an opportunity here, Tierra, to get that story specifically as a headline in itself, if we can get that kind of coverage to show, to discuss this as a more important issue now that you're out.
Hey, I think that's powerful conversation that needs to happen, because I saw somebody put a celebrity's name in the chats, and I know that go ahead, Tina, because I know you want to say that. But there were celebrities even who turned a blind eye to what was happening, and you didn't even know the story, but they too fed into the negative narrative about a Black woman having a situation in a foreign country.
And when a celebrity chimes in with the negative information, they may have the power to influence other people who are unhinged. And that can make the situation a lot more traumatizing, when you have this person with a certain level of clout in society to be able to influence, other people with their opinion about the situation. That was just really awful. I don't want to say the name because I don't know if it's, against the platform's legal ability to.
Somebody needs a mute. I thought it was you, Miss Haraya, but it's not. Can somebody please mute? I'm sorry, go ahead, Tina.
Yes, but I was kind of concerned about whether or not a celebrity could have influence over other people, passing judgment because of who they are. And I definitely believe that because this one person made the statement, that they probably influenced a whole segment of the population into thinking
absolutely
they feel must be the right way, especially since this person goes to Dubai quite often and has a lot of interaction with the city of Dubai.
They actually commented on Tierra's case. Who was this? Come on, name and shame them if they've said it publicly.
It was Steve Harvey. It was Steve Harvey, and he actually mixed her prior trip with the current trip. There was no research done about what was happening. He called her ghetto green hair. He said she must be guilty because she wore green hair to Dubai. The one trip with the green hair was not even the current trip that she took. So they had nothing to do with each other. He did not have any facts on the case, but I was assuming because he does do business with Dubai, he has a lot of ventures, a lot of, pictures, a lot of trips there. Maybe he was trying to do damage control because the story was becoming too big to make sure he protected his business ventures over there.
Do you know what? If he has friends in Dubai, if he has business interests there, he's going to have connections, and he will have a lot of people in Dubai reaching out to him and saying, look, can you say something about this case? Because it's not true. Tierra did this and Tierra did that. She's lying. They persuade him, but he should have come to you, come to me and asked us for the details before passing judgment like that.
I was open to providing, information to whoever was reaching out to get more insight on what was happening. The thing that really bothered me is this individual has a young daughter who's constantly dragged in the social media and the court of public opinion. I would have assumed he would be the last person to make this assumption about another young lady in her 20s. So I was literally,
this has just upset me. I want to put a press release out.
This happened. So
Mm.
I
Mm.
was just totally taken back because I was thinking,
Yeah.
okay, this man has a daughter who goes through this all the time, where she's
Mm.
dragged through social media without all
Mm.
of the facts. And he did the exact same thing to someone else's child. And he didn't do any research. When I heard it, I only listened to his segment about a week ago, because a lot of the content I was no longer listening to. If it was negative, I didn't want to follow it. But I came across it and I was absolutely stunned because of the fact that he has dealt with similar situations with his own child, and because of the fact that because he's a man, he could, with that influence over society, he could easily sway another person's judgment on what was happening without all of the facts being presented. So yes, and then I would also say for men, what they could do is, there were some men who knew me personally. They inboxed me and asked if there was anything that they could do to help me and to provide support. But I did not see as many reaching out on public platforms to ask if there was any support they could give. So I think it was because they were afraid that they didn't want to become drawn in with the negative comments and, you know, into the limelight by showing that support. And I kind of understood, but I think that that support made a lot of difference. I don't know if they know it or not, but just seeing the few that did personally reach out in inboxes to show that they did, you know, want to help out if there was anything that they could do, it made a world of a difference. It separated them from the people who were judging without all of the facts.
Yeah, my feeling was, you know, no matter what she had done, and I recognized she was in another country, but I'm like, really? You know, why would we jump on that bandwagon? The goal was to get our young sister home, and whatever that took.
And I will also say that Tierra did go through a very troubling moment. She went through, she doesn't like to talk about it, but we thought suicide would be on the table. And in the process, the comments and the negative feedback is actually what was making her feel that way. It wasn't even the case. She could have dealt with the case, but the negative feedback in the comments, I had to beg her to stay off social media, stay away, because she was trying to fight her case and fight against, she was even extorted by ex-friends because people thought she had money because this case had blown up. It was just so much behind the scenes going on that it was ridiculous. And I don't think people realize, like with social media, how much it could affect a person's emotional state. So one of the things that need to happen, I think, is that people have to become more mindful about what they're saying in comment sections on social media platforms, because you don't know what a person is going through behind closed doors.
Exactly. Exactly. Before we sign off here, I want to open it up, and first of all, you know, I want to hear, we can finish hearing from Haraya, but also who else, two things. Raise your hand. Let me put it on, take everybody off spotlight. We'll go on gallery right now so we can see everybody, what's happening. So if you want to turn on your cameras, this would be a nice time. Because I want us to talk about, okay, let me see. All right, do you all see the gallery view? I hope so. Because I want to know if you can raise your hand, or just like, you know, physically or with your apparatus. Have you been to Dubai? Oh, Pat, you've been. I definitely want to hear. Anybody else been besides Pat and Miss Bay? Anybody else? Okay, so we want to hear from them. Now let me ask, prior to this phone call, who was planning to go to? Phyllis, have you been to Dubai? Let's see.
Yes.
Oh,
Back from Egypt.
Oh,
This
so
is pre-pandemic.
Yeah, let me hear from you as well. And now I want to also know, like, Rosalind, you've been to some more people. I'm not surprised, I guess, because I think it's a hot tourist spot. So Rosalind's been there too. Yeah. So talk to me about people who—
No, Helen, I have not been there. I was planning to go there, but I will not be going there.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. How many people are planning to go? Anybody other than Rosalind?
I was planning to go, but I changed my mind when I saw something on the potty, something they were doing.
Ooh,
Like,
I'm not even gonna share that. That is so scandalous. That's horrible.
Helen,
I sent that to you, Rada. Did you look at that article I sent you?
Yes, I did. I mean, look, sorry, am I unmuted? Yes. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in Dubai, even hiding behind the conservative culture where you're not allowed to show your hands, arms, and you're not allowed to hold hands or kiss in public. At the same token, you've got this horrendous underground world there, and that's prostitution, that's the abuse of women, human trafficking, and it's extensive and expansive. So nothing really surprises me on that level. There's actually been someone who was executed in the palace because he refused to import 20 underage girls from an African country for one of the sheikhs. So it's the kind of thing that we just see on a regular basis. So it doesn't surprise me at all. The issue is when people, they're making that decision for themselves, for the money or whatever it is, but sometimes they're not able to get out of that situation once they're there. Their passport can be taken by whoever's brought them over, and they can be threatened with, and I have had a woman just contact me recently saying, you can't leave. You're now basically my chattel, my property. And if you try, I'm going to take a criminal case against you before you even get to the airport, and they'll throw you in jail. So we've got people in those kind of desperate situations as well. Does not surprise me.
So I'm not gonna post this article, but if you're interested, it's pretty disgusting. And if you look up, I'll just put in the chats, Dubai porta potty. It's very bad. So anyway, so real quickly, let me hear from you, Miss Bay. And I thought what was interesting, you said your daughter was there teaching, and Carol Chang had a joke on this morning. I'm like, you're not really going to where's Carol? But I see you. It's like, girl, but a lot of people have gone there to teach. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Helen. Were you asking me?
Well, I know Carol is a teacher, so I think, and people even with her, like, you can go over there for real. She put it on as a joke this morning.
Yeah, a couple of my friends are there teaching.
Yeah, there's
currently.
a lot.
Yeah.
I know several young women.
So very quickly, Miss Bay, go ahead and tell us your experience.
Yeah, Helen, a large group of young teachers had gone to Dubai because the United States wasn't paying teachers as much, and Dubai was offering free accommodations. But my daughter did say that when she arrived, because they do operate on the class system, Emiratis are the first class, and then I didn't know about the Gulf people being the second class. I was told that the American was the second class, and anybody under that just got treated like dirt. So that when she first arrived, they thought she was from Africa and treated her very badly. And then when they heard her speak in her dialect, they knew that she was American, and she got, the royal treatment, so to speak. But what I was going to say is that when I was leaving, they claimed the French representative from the airlines claimed he couldn't find my a mobility scooter. And of course I converted to Philadelphia Black woman, okay? Which I am by nature. And I was like, look, you got my scooter over here. You're gonna find my scooter, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And my daughter's standing there, she's all conservative and real discreet. Mommy, you can't be getting loud like that over here. I didn't understand what she was saying, because all I know is Black woman common sense, And so then after he went and just abruptly and rudely left me, went behind his counter, pulled down the shield as if we're closed. And I'm about ready to bang on the counter like, you come out of there. You just went in there. But anyway, this Arab sheikh came from somewhere in the airport, and he asked me what was the problem and so on and so forth. So I explained the problem to him. And we're a Muslim family, so we were in garb and everything. I don't know if that had a difference when I'm hearing these stories about Queen Latifah, I mean, my goodness, if the Sheikh's daughter was detained and kidnapped, who am I, as a Black woman? But anyway, he got a hold of the French guy, and he told him, I said, the plane is about to leave and they don't have my scooter. He told them, he said, tell them to hold the plane. And I was like, well, damn, who does he think I am, Oprah or somebody?
At that moment, it was okay, whatever they thought, right?
Whatever they thought. But anyway, we wound up having to leave the next day, and they gave us a courtesy where we didn't have to pay for the ticket over again. But I had an incident while I was there, when I was out on the street with the scooter, and we were trying to get it into my daughter's car, and I turned to one of these, Arab men that was in this stove and everything, and I just been a senior Black woman, I'll be 70 next year, I always feel like I can turn to any man and say, can you help me with this? Would you help me with this? And I have no problem. This is, I thought this was across the world. And my daughter said, don't ever ask them to do anything. And I was like, you must be out of your mind. Excuse me.
Yeah, there are a lot of nuances that we have.
And he had his nose turned up, but he bent down like any normal man would do, and he helped me with the scooter. But I am just on the edge of my seat, thinking how close I may have come to one of these particular situations. Yeah. And
all right, well, let's keep it moving. Thank you, Ms. Okay. I'm glad that you didn't have a bad experience. Pat Rivera, can you talk to us for a minute? And Phyllis, I want to hear from you. And Wayne, I saw you had your hand up. Pat, are you still with us? Where's Pat? Oh, there you are, Pat.
Unmuted. All right, so we went in 2019.
Oh.
I had just gotten married, and my assistant was part of National Black Skiers, and they were going to Dubai to ski. And I was somewhat reluctant to go to Dubai. I didn't really want to go, but my husband wanted to go, and it was a big group. So my son went, my daughter, and my niece. And while we were there, my niece, who really my cousin, was very vocal and has a PR company. She starts yelling at the taxi driver about something. And my son says to her, and I swore he was joking, do not yell at these people here. Do not yell at this man. You will be arrested. I just spoke to him now. He just left here now. I thought he made it up because he's a jokester. He said, no, I read it. And I'm thinking how close we were with Carol yelling at this guy. I felt unsafe in Dubai. As I said, I didn't really want to go. I always thought about the people being taken hostages and all the stuff I'm reading. I did notice they said you could wear skimpy clothes. I didn't, but the girls were on the street with their arms showing and everything. And the only thing I really noticed is that the Pakistanis did all the work. They were the ones busting up stone by hand in front of the hotel. They weren't even using a machine. They're doing this by hand. That I noticed. I certainly was told you could not drink anywhere. If you didn't stay in an American hotel, you couldn't drink. So there was no drinking. We stayed in one of their hotels. Because the group we went with goes all the time. Now my daughter is talking to me about there's a big women's conference in Dubai coming up. And she's asked me if I want to go with her. I told her, no, I don't have an interest in going back. I wasn't that knocked out by seeing all the skyscrapers. It just didn't really do a lot. And all that they've done, because, it's a made up place. Everything's made up for it. So I guess, but I would just say that we were careful. I thought he was joking about the screaming at people, but now I know that you really are, we're relegated to a certain spot. And I think that green book that people want for Black women to travel, somebody needs to make that. It's an excellent idea. And definitely, if we could at least get Rada's tips on how to handle yourself in these companies, it would be great to have.
Yeah, good point. Phyllis, I didn't know if you wanted to share your experience very quickly. I'm always going to put you on the spot. Phyllis, you don't have to though, but I'd love to hear you went during the pandemic, so you might have had a different experience.
No, I went in 2018.
Oh, before the
pandemic. Before the pandemic. I would say I wasn't really interested in going. It was the hottest tourist spot around at that time. But I ended up going with a group after my trip to Egypt. And I would say we did a day trip to a mosque in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, Sheikh Zayed Mosque.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I recall one of the young women I was with, I think the trip was about 70 people. And one of the young women I had met there was, she arrived at the mosque dressed in what they felt was inappropriate attire. She was fully covered, but she was a Black, curvy 30-year-old, and they felt like she just was too voluptuous in order to get in the mosque. And I remember this moment because they just took her away. They didn't say anything to our entire group. And we're just like, wait, hold on, where did she go? And as we're looking for her, eventually they came back and they gave her something else to wear. But I remember, having that experience, like, where did she go? Like, did something happen to her, or she's gonna come back? So I have a couple of friends recently, a couple of weeks ago. I have a couple of friends I was catching up with a couple of weeks ago who plan on going to Dubai this year, at the end of this year. And I was just like, why do you want to go there? So I will definitely be sharing this what we've been talking about to them, because they're just Black women, and young and just curious about the world. And I feel like this could have been any one of us. There's nothing that you could do to prevent it. There's nothing, as a young woman who's traveled around the world, and I try to be very conscious about what I'm wearing and how I present myself. And, like, being a Black woman from Brownsville, Brooklyn, it's hard, but you try to do everything that you can, but, like, you can't avoid these sort of situations.
True.
So,
and there's too many nuances to know. Wayne, I'm going to come to you in a minute. Rada, what is your advice to anybody, but certainly women traveling alone?
Advice to anyone, I mean, it's really difficult, but I suppose if you're not looking to go there to party and you avoid any conflicts as much as possible, even if provoked, I think if you ensure that you pay for everything, if you ensure that you try to just avoid as many disputes as you can, I think that's all you can do, because most of the people who end up in trouble over there, it's not because of any wrongdoing, it's just because someone has targeted them.
But this whole thing about residual marijuana, man, that's crazy to think that you can do something before you even arrive in that country and be held accountable. Residual marijuana happening.
Well,
How many people don't have
that's it. Exactly. I mean, you can either be like most people, and that's take the risk. You can see other people who are drinking alcohol in a bar and you can do the same, and you might be the one who's arrested. Hopefully not. So most people, I think, are of that mind, or they assume it to be legal. If you want to run by the letter of the law, then you would have to look at our website, detainedindubai.org, because the US Embassy does not give enough travel warnings, as I explained earlier. So, I mean, prescription medicine, it's not even clear what prescriptions are prohibited by the UAE. And when you call their embassy to check on your prescription, sometimes you'll get different advice. So even that's not clear. But generally speaking, if you have prescription medicine that you need to take, probably not a good idea to go to the UAE. If you want to drink alcohol, you have to realize that you can drink it at the bar, a licensed venue. The moment you step outside of that venue. If you're tested for whatever reason, maybe someone calls the police on you or just gets annoyed at you or something like that. Maybe you looked at their husband in the wrong way. They might ask for you to be tested, and it would be illegal to have alcohol in your blood. And the same goes for even within the bar, it's illegal if you get tested. So you can either be very strict and take it as kind of a cultural tour and just try not to get into any trouble, but it's just absolutely not the best party destination. I know that they market themselves as Las Vegas or Bangkok or, you know, whatever you want to compare it to, but I think there's better places to go if partying is what you want. You know, go to Ibiza in Spain, frankly. Don't go to Dubai for that sort of a holiday.
I'm with Pat. We can see skyscrapers in New York. Wayne, you had a question real quick. Wayne actually has a magazine, Port of Harlem, so he's probably going to cover some of what we've talked about today. But Wayne, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? You're on mute, Wayne. You're muted. Uh-oh, he had this problem earlier. Wayne, we can't hear you. Okay, so when he figures that out, then we'll just jump in when you get your mute fixed, Wayne.
Okay, is that better now?
Oh, go ahead, we hear you.
I was just saying that the Gambia is a 90% Muslim country. And most of these experiences you all speaking of, you won't have in that 90% Muslim country. And it's tolerant. And so you all are always welcome to come home to Africa's Smiling Coast.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because we have had a lot of support from journalists and media in Gambia who cover loads of our cases, and I thought that was really interesting. I thought, why are you so interested in these Dubai cases? But they just
I'm so glad to
covering
hear
them. Yeah, so they're really supportive. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
generally because in the Gambia, people are tolerant.
Mm.
And it's very safe. I can go at night to the ATM at 12 midnight.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to happen.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it?
Are you in the
Yes.
Gambia, Wayne, or are you in the States?
I'm in the States right now, but you know, we have programs in the Gambia.
Okay.
And most of our second largest readership is in Banjul, and our fourth largest is Serekunda.
Okay, beautiful. Somebody said, can you retire in Gambia? In the Gambia?
Absolutely. A lot of Europeans do.
Okay, wonderful.
Is his contact information in the chat?
No, you can put it there.
I will. It's there twice, but I will.
Okay, great. And for you all to know, I put Radha's website in the chat. So please follow up with her on any questions that you might have. So we are getting close. We are getting close to our bewitching hour. So I'm going to give one last opportunity. Oh, wait a minute. Do I see your hand, Tierra? Did you want to say something? Tierra or Tina, your hand is up. No?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually forgot.
Okay, I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry. Just jump, girl. You can just jump in. You can cut me off. It's all good. But before we wrap up, because I am so grateful for all of your time, thank you, Tierra, for agreeing to do this, because I asked her while I asked Tina while Tierra was still stuck in Dubai, would she be willing to do this? And she said yes. So thank you.
I answered on behalf of her.
Yeah.
Because of the support that you showed while she was there. I did discuss it with her, but I had already provided the answer before I followed up with her.
Yeah, I didn't expect her to talk to us while she was there. We just needed her to get home. But yeah, I posted, as soon as Danielle reached out to me, I went right into, baby mama.
Just 1 second, I've got to get the door. Hang on.
Okay, I'll go right ahead. So yeah, I jumped right in and started posting stuff about the situation. I wrote a quick blog. Some of you may have seen it. I'm not sure if you did or not. I guess I can post it here. But right away, as Black, when Black women gather, we do amazing things. So it's like, get this girl home, however we have to do it. So it was just a great thing to be able to support Tina on that. So while we're waiting for Rada to come back so we can thank her for her time, is there anybody who has a last minute question that you want to ask or just a comment that you want to make? Rosalind, I heard you say that you're not going. Anybody else feel like Rosalind, like I'm over the whole Dubai thing?
Yeah, I'm definitely over. I would just like
I'm over it.
to ask Tina, there was a lawyer that was with you a lot of the times on the press release, the press conferences. A male, Tina.
Oh, that was Quanell X. He's a legal advocate.
Mhm.
Okay.
So Quanell is not a lawyer. He's just a legal advocate. That the male that was standing next to me during the original press conference,
Yes.
he was just a legal advocate speaking on behalf of the family to try to help get support and bring awareness to Tierra's situation.
And Sheila Jackson Lee, kudos to her for coming to your meeting, and you've done press conference with her since you've been back.
I would like to say that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee would call me in the middle of the night on a flight back home sometimes when she was leaving meetings to keep me up to date on information. She went above and beyond helping out. She was very
and I can certainly attest to that, because
Yeah.
it's extremely rare to get that kind of dedicated full-on support from a politician. Usually it's a real struggle. She took it on straight away, didn't she? She took a really genuine, committed effort, and that was so important. And even the US consulate said that Tierra should really thank her because she worked hard. So
Yes,
she was very supportive. It was
and
amazing.
I'll also add that we live in a suburb outside of Houston, Texas. So our actual congressperson is not Sheila Jackson Lee. She is the congresswoman of Houston, of Harris County inside of Houston. She actually stepped into the role to support us. So she didn't have to take on that role of support, but she chose to.
Kudos to her, right?
I just want to mention to everyone, I keep hearing African American and Black American. That has nothing, those adjectives mean nothing. When you leave the country, you are an American, period. That's it. Black, Italian, whatever. If you are an American, you are a foreigner. When you go to the bank, you have to have your passport with you. When you go in most places you go, I've been mistaken for a Filipino. I've been mistaken.
They don't know. Ellen lives in Vietnam for those.
They don't. Yeah, but I just wanted to say to you, when you're going to put the adjective before American, it means nothing. If they know you're an American, you are an American, Black, white, or otherwise. It doesn't mean anything.
You know what's interesting, Rada, because as a Black person Black American who travels a lot, what we are often told, which has been my experience a lot, is that the blue plastic, the being Black and American, when you leave the United States, that privilege kind of falls over. And not that, it's to some respect, Black Americans have a far better time, I think, than Black people from other countries. And there's a little privilege that comes with that blue.
100%. Yes. I mean, when I'm dealing with a case, it is so much easier for me if that person is British or American, Australian, and certain European countries. I get a lot of clients from the continent of Africa. So I get people from Nigeria quite frequently and all over the place. And of course, it's so much harder for me because the UAE and other Gulf nations don't take African countries as seriously as they take the American and Western counterparts. So, I mean, that's really unfortunate, actually.
They don't trust Nigerians here in Vietnam. They do not trust them.
But what's interesting, Rada, what made me come to that is because you were saying that the judges and the police officers are saying to, Black Americans, yeah, but you might be American, but you're African first. So I find that very interesting.
I think so. And I think, genuinely believed that the US Embassy would be less likely to help them because they were not real Americans, according to them. And that is just the true face of racism in the UAE. And I said it is widespread, it's common, everyone knows about it, people talk about it all the time. It's nothing that they're ashamed of and nothing that they try to hide. There's no criticism for it. So that's why they're so open to be able to say those kind of things. And perhaps in his experience, he has seen that Black Americans have not received the same support, you know, maybe in the media and maybe with the embassy in the past than other white Americans. So you don't know, they might be actually talking from experience in that particular situation.
No question, no question.
I know what I wanted to say. A lot of times, especially a lot of us Americans, we only see the glamorized version of Dubai. But I found out when I was doing research during the time she was over there that they do a good job of protecting their image. So a lot of the negative content about Dubai does not get displayed on the internet.
That's right.
And they do a good job of scrubbing to remove a lot of the negative comments, a lot of the negative information about their city. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes to find out a lot of the stories that may be considered, that may affect your decision about going there, because you don't see as much content in a negative light about Dubai online, because they protect their image with making sure that content is not exposed to the public, or scrubbing the internet to make sure it gets removed when it's placed there.
They have, you know,
Porta potty foolishness is out there.
They have people
they
who
can't stop everything. They do a good job of
exactly,
protecting their
they
image.
try. But I mean, they have people who go scour through Wikipedia and try to edit stories. They've kind of started to give up on that. But I think their biggest power and influences come from the fact that they have money, that they give a lot of that money to newspapers. And I've seen certain newspapers who have taken money from them slowly over the years stop publishing these kind of stories, because they're going to be opposite a huge one-page advertisement for, you know, hotels in Dubai or something, or real estate in Dubai. So they're definitely being able to suppress media through investments in PR agencies, marketing companies, media, and government.
For sure, for sure. All right, this has been, I don't know about y'all, but this has been quite informative. I'm sure everybody on this call is going away with something you didn't have before you came. And it's not, and I wanted you to hear both of these stories firsthand for yourself. I wanted Rada to impress upon us that these are not isolated incidents, that we need to be concerned when we travel. I'm going to say I'm not going to Dubai. It was never on my list anyway, and it certainly after this, it really isn't, because why risk it? And you know, things can happen to you anywhere when you're traveling, particularly when you're traveling alone. But you know, if that risk that you can minimize, I say do all that you can to minimize it. So on that note, I just want to say thank you so much. Tierra, girl, we glad you're home, girl.
Yes.
Can y'all unmute and give Tierra some love before we sign off?
Welcome home.
Yeah.
Great job today, by the way.
Great job. Great job.
Welcome home. Welcome home.
Strong, sis.
You are loud.
We needed to know this. We did.
Yes, we do.
We needed to know this.
Glad you're home.
Thank you so much for coming to
Stay
our
strong.
forum
Stay strong.
to share your story, right? Because these are Black women mostly, and we, especially young. I mean, Phyllis is probably closest to your age that I know on this call. And you know, young people are traveling more than ever. And we need to understand this, and we can't allow the narrative that says she was over there acting this kind of way and, you know, doing the Black woman thing. It had nothing to do with that. It was about
it was a young, vulnerable woman who was seen as a target by a predator, essentially, is how I would summarize it. And you're right, like younger people are more targeted because they know that they don't know what to do in these situations. So definitely our children are at risk.
Yeah. I don't think I would know what to do. And I'm a lawyer. I don't know what, I mean, Pat, what would you do in that situation?
Oh, am I muted? No, I want to be a part of any group that does this. And I would reach out to these celebrities that made their money there. Definitely. and reach out to them and shame them into coming in because you go there, you advertise so we can go there. And then this happens, these people could have wound up in jail. And I'm sure the jails there are horrendous.
I'm sure they
They certainly are. We've got people who have been tortured, beaten by prison guards, and we had someone who was actually killed through police brutality over there. So yeah, it's not somewhere you want to end up.
I want to applaud the bravery of the mother, you know, because I mean, as a mom, I'd be on a Dick Gregory 40 day, 50-day fast, you know, I just respect your bravery and your fearlessness, you know.
Yeah, that is interesting. Before we sign off, Tina, tell us real quickly, how were you able to garner the media attention that you did get? I mean, I know Tierra is very active in social media, so did you learn from her?
No, actually, it started with Rada. Yeah, she was actually amazing through this process. She actually placed the first message out, I believe, on Twitter, but it didn't really garner a lot of attention. And so Rada suggested that we go public with the story. And I used Facebook actually and asked my friends to share the message on Facebook. Tierra had a pretty big following on there. So a lot of the people on her Facebook and Instagram, they were interlinked and they picked up on the story and it started spreading really fast like that. The next thing I did was I reached out to the legal advocate, Mr. Quanell X, and he suggested that we do report it with the news, take that avenue. So we went through the news and one of the reporters actually helped me get in contact with the local congresswoman. And from there, everything just took off. So it's like different avenues were taken. I pretty much covered every base. I work with RADA, I work with legal advocates, I work with our local senators. They did reach out to me and they followed up on the case, but they just weren't as proactive as the congresswoman. So I worked through the news, I worked through social media, I worked through Ms. Rada Sterling, I worked through local legal advocates and our local representatives.
How long was the ordeal? How long was the ordeal?
I'm sorry.
How long was the ordeal?
Oh, the entire ordeal. It started
was from May I think it was May 18th. The actual charge happened. Yeah, the actual criminal charge, May 18th. So.
And when did it end?
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Got back on August 9th.
Yeah, she just got back.
Wow.
Yeah, we're lucky to have her. And I know, Tierra, look, I hope that we have given you some, because I can only imagine what you've been through, and I'm sure you're still going through it. You're probably still having sleepless nights or what have you, but you're home safe. And I hope seeing all these faces here today that are 100% in your favor will help you sleep a little bit better at night, and to know that there's no blemish on you for this. It could have happened to any one of us, as you've heard.
Anybody.
And I don't want to leave out God, the power of prayer.
Yes.
Because I prayed many days and nights. I did several fasts. I reached out to all of my friends who were spiritually grounded and asked for their prayers. I asked them to ask their pastors for their prayers. So the power of God was very essential in her returning back. And I definitely want to, give God the praise, because I almost feel like it was a miracle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a miracle.
I want to say one thing. You guys may need, Steve Harvey may need your help if they go, if these rumors are true about his taxes and his wife going with the bodyguard. So just say
we ain't going there, Ellen. We ain't going there, but I
had to add some spice in it.
And I just like to jump in too. People know that Tierra is an influencer, but the sister is a serious truck driver. She's not some hoochie mama, some hood rat. If you look, because when I found out from Helen, I looked up, okay, she's an influencer, and this sister, she not only drives heavy equipment, but she moves heavy equipment. So the thing is,
20. What? How old are you, girl?
Absolutely. She does things that men would never even want to do. So, just looking at that, what she does, not what she did, or the fact that her hair is green. That has nothing to do with anything. You know, it's the work that she does. And it hurts me again to know that people are putting her in a situation where it may even affect her job, but she feels depressed. So you go ahead and do the strong thing that you continue to do, sisters. And I put my information out there, and I'm a good friend of Helen, so I'm not like a troll or anything like that. You know, if it's something that we can do, if it's something I can do, reach out to Black men organizations, support you in any way, you just let me know, and let me know through Helen.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
She's a very hard
Absolutely.
worker. She's a very hard worker. She loves traveling, and she uses her platform.
Don't you dare let that
share some of her travel experience with the industry.
Yeah,
So
don't
she's
you
a
let
hard
this
worker.
glimmer your light. You keep traveling and seeing the world, Tierra. You just stay out of Arab countries. Look, somebody asked in the chats, but we didn't get to ask you. Somebody asked, are you allowed to go back if you chose to, or have you been banned?
I mean, I think they said that you were not allowed to come back, didn't they, when you were leaving? Yeah.
I told them to ban.
Yeah.
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 She actually she volunteered the ban.
Yeah,
when she left.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think she'd be looking at doing
Yeah.
that, but I think also there's a potential that even though they released her, there's a potential that she could get convicted in absentia in any case,
Yeah.
even though they let her go. And also they could, the rental car agency will have a civil case against her now. So if she did go back, she would definitely be arrested.
Well, I want to know, Rada, what gives you your clout in a a male-dominated country? That how are you so effectively able to maneuver amongst all of these male hierarchies?
So how did you establish yourself to be a force to be reckoned, a female force to be reckoned with, Rada?
Yes.
I mean, I didn't really see it as an issue at the time. I suppose the way I started the organization was very organic. A friend of mine was detained in Dubai, and I worked with a local attorney, a former prosecutor, there to secure his release. And at the same time, I used the power of the media to highlight his case. And he was released. He was wrongfully detained, released, and I started the website as a result. And then people kept contacting me saying, well, you helped your friend. Can you help me as well? And so I just started helping other people or doing what I could and hoping that I would have positive outcomes. And then over that time, I trained up with quite a few other lawyers, judges, prosecutors, met up with them in person, read all of the books I possibly could, and, you know, spoke to people, victims of injustice, and just did so much research and created this huge knowledge base. And it just sort of organically grew from there. I don't think the fact that it is a male-dominated society in the UAE has affected me in any way, because they're not looking at me as a local. They're not looking at me as someone subject to those kind of rules. They can see what I've done. I've already done it, whether they like it or not, and they can see that I do it, and this is the outcome that it has. And the outcome for them is that, you know, we end up having issues debated in Parliament, raised to Congress. You know, we have members of Parliament here diplomatically communicating with them, meeting up with their ambassador, criticizing them and creating a problem for them. And at the same time, we have basically made the whole media push over the past 15 years to the point where the media is always talking about some issue with Dubai, some injustice, some wrongful arrest, torture case, you know, whatever it is. So they see that I'm effective, and therefore I don't think it really matters my gender, my race, anything like that.
What's the deal with like Amnesty? What is it?
Amnesty International.
Right. What are they? Do they take a position on this or not at all?
You know, sometimes they do, but basically Amnesty and Human Rights Watch have got so kind of big that even if I take a case to them like Princess Latifa, I haven't found them effective at doing anything. They might put a little press release and add their comment to media articles, and I don't really see how that really necessarily helps us get someone free. So yes, they've raised different issues, but like the United Nations, when an organization is not specialized, you know, both Amnesty and Human Rights Watch, I think most of what they've done as far as the UAE is concerned is write those reports. So do that research and put out an annual report about general human rights abuses within the Emirates, but they're not going to go into tourist cases so much. They're more going to be talking about migrant workers who are being subjected to terrible conditions, dying on their job, and, you know, more of that sort of higher level thing. They're not going to get down into the nitty gritty of what we do as a specialized organization.
Exactly. All right. Wow. I think we could go on and on. There's just so much here, but it is late, and I know that you're in England, and Demetrius has been. Man, we've got England on this call. We've got Ghana on this call. We've got Japan
I can say
on
Japan.
this call.
Yes,
We've got Vietnam on this call. So we are an international body.
Yes, certainly.
I do have one
yeah.
question, if you don't mind. I do
Very
have one question
quickly.
for
Go
Rod.
ahead. Go ahead, Matthew.
Very quickly. Then, I mean, to push this thing forward, I think Patricia was saying something, if I'm not mistaken, about a green book for people to travel.
I think we need one.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, hearing all these stories, and you know that Steve Harvey, I'm sorry, I don't like him anyway. I don't. Okay, I'm a man, and I've been listening to you guys for 2 hours, and I'm with you, sister. Okay, first of all, I'm sorry I'm not on no social media because I don't believe in anybody else but me. And I'm already convinced that I love my sisters, period. I don't need another man trying to tell me to stick up for my sisters because I'm going to already do that automatically. Automatically.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm sorry for what they said, whoever those knucklehead so-called men were. I'm very sorry for what they said because they mean nothing, sister. Trust me, they mean nothing. And this coming from a man, I don't live in the United States. I live in Japan. And Roger, this is the question I had for you. Would it be more sufficient or efficient to just say, put together that green book or whatever you want to call it, and completely continuously shame them? Because what you said about the State Department is absolutely true. They're going to do the very minimum. They're going to send you to a vice consul and give you a name of a list of lawyers, and that's it. See, you so sorry. You should have been there.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely true. You're right about that. So why don't you go through that other way of saying not just this green book, but continue with a media blitz of shaming them, telling people don't go there. Straight out, just say nope, do not go there.
I think that message is, I mean, like, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, make your own decision, but if after what you've heard today, you still want to go to Dubai, then do your thing. But
Helen, I have an idea though.
but don't call Rada.
Yeah. Helen, I have an idea. Why couldn't from this group you get their suggestions? Everybody's been all over, and we send it to you and start putting that together as our own green book.
And you know, it's interesting because and this kind of takes me back to where we used to be, because every third Sunday I would do an international call. So that's how I met Matthew in Japan. So we could put something together and I travel a lot. I think a lot of people on this call travel a lot. So we probably could put something together about experiences and you know, things that we should be looking out for in countries like the Green Book from way back when. I wish we had never let it go, right? Because we don't need to stay in other people's hotels and all. We would have our own chains. But a Green Book in this case would be traveling tips and almost like an advisory before you leave home, things that you need. Traveling While Black Green Book.
Right. Helen, this is Claudette. It was me who put it in the chat.
That's right.
And I think that we should do it because growing up, I have instilled in my nieces and nephews the need to travel, and they have traveled a heck of a lot more than I have in my experience. Exactly. And I'm always concerned about where they're going. So there's lots of information that we can curate from among the group and make it a project for your organization to be able to generate some revenue.
Yeah,
I think we can do that.
This is National Black Business Month, and that would be excellent because it would be supporting Black businesses across the globe.
Right.
You know,
so what I'll be doing is following up with you know, Pat, Claudette, anybody else is interested, like we can start, and you know, even reaching back to people that we've interviewed for other countries, and let's just start putting something together. Because like I said, we're talking about Dubai, but you know, look, I live in Florida, y'all. You gotta be careful about coming down here.
Ain't that the
I'm a
truth?
firm believer you should be able to go wherever you want to go.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
I
should.
hate to doubt, I hate to douse the interest or the curiosity of any people. Okay, and so the reason why I was trying to push that green book situation is to say, hey, give people the tools and the weapons, right? The weapons to know what they need to know if they want to go to a certain individual place.
Right.
But here's
So-
the deal, okay? Understand all those weapons. I'm not saying don't go there. I'm saying this can happen if
They're
you do go
weapons. It's
there.
advisory.
Information.
You need to, it's an advisory. It's to
Right,
farm
exactly.
the knowledge that you need before you go.
And
recognizing that
and you're all welcome. You're all welcome to come to Japan. You can do whatever you want to over here. You're not gonna get locked up. Trust me.
you might not
Trust-
get locked
trust me.
up, but I'm sure there are nuances to being Black in Japan too. I'm sure.
There are.
Especially as a Black woman.
There are.
Yeah.
No. There are.
Yeah.
There are.
Right.
But as a Black woman in Japan,
yeah.
you'll get away with way more than me as a Black man in Japan. And I grew up over here. Now I'm telling you this from straight up. You get away with way more. And way more by what I mean with way more, you don't have to worry about no mess like that.
Right.
Seriously. You will not have to worry about no mess like that. This is the stuff you need to put, the information you need to gather and put in books to say, this is a safe place for you to come and be Black.
So Helen, this is Claudette again. So for the past couple of Howard homecomings, our alumni group, the Capstone, has been doing just this during homecoming, reaching out to expats living abroad, working abroad, traveling abroad to try to generate that knowledge share. So maybe we can find some way to team up because we do have an event coming up in October that we're looking for people, most principally Howard graduates, anybody that attended Howard for a semester, you qualify to be able to share with us what it's like living in these different countries and experiencing life or learning in these different spaces.
Yeah.
So I think there's some value here that we can leverage.
Stories to tell, definitely. All right, I don't want to abuse our guests, and at this point, I think we are.
All right.
So, and we can all unmute and do what we do every Sunday. Thank you, Rada, for coming. And please know that this forum is open to you anytime. Please come again.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to hear everything from all different people as well, and the guys too. It's nice to have some male input on these issues in particular.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much. I am fading. I am getting tired. So
all right.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Tiara and Tina, thank you
You're
so much.
welcome.
You're welcome.
Thanks for
And
having me.
please come again. You know, whenever this forum is open to you, as you know. So if we can all just do what we do every week and unmute everybody, please. And when Black women gather,
Amazing
things
happen.
and this has been an amazing Sunday. And thank you. I cannot do this without all of you. Thank you so much for your support. And please, please, please come again. I will not be here next Sunday. This is the only one I'm doing for August, but we'll be back in September with some good stuff. Right.
All right. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
Thanks,
so
Helen,
much,
for hosting.
everyone.
Thanks
Thank
for all
you,
of
guys.
your support.
bye, Tara. Bye, Tina.
No problem.
Bye,
Get
Thank
some
you.
sleep, Rada. And Patricia's
love.
gonna be, she
Peace
signed
and
up.
love, everybody.
Pat, I'm gonna put you in touch with Rada.
Okay.
So you all can do some things individually. I'm not recording right now, but thank you all.
Thank you.